On today's episode of Locked-On Oilers, we preview the matchup against the Minnesota Wild and the home against the Minnesota Wild. We will talk about that and much more in today's episode of Locked-On Oilers.
You're Locked-On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers. Part of the Locked-On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to the Locked-On Oilers podcast. I'm your host and former Oilers game day producer, Brett Holden. As mentioned on today's episode, we're going to preview the matchup against the Minnesota Wild. The Edmonton Oilers are rolling out some lines that have already seen them have some success. So we will talk about that in just a minute. Also on today's episode, we're going to go through the three things that the Edmonton Oilers need to do in this home against the Minnesota Wild to have success. And finally, we will wrap up our episode with the dog of the week as we're bringing it back. The dog of the week. I don't think we've done this since the playoffs, so it's nice to have the dog of the week back. That'll be to wrap up today's episode. But until then, thank you so much for making Locked On Oilers your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you find your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Where we're going to start off today is our preview of our matchup between the Edmonton Oilers and the Minnesota Wild, as the Wild are in Edmonton tonight, and then the Oilers and the Wild will make their way to Minnesota for a matchup on Monday at 6 o'clock Edmonton time, Mountain Time, for the second of the home. But for the Edmonton Oilers tonight, they are rolling out their exact same lineup that they had against the Arizona Coyotes, continuing with the hot hand, as Tyler Benson was sent down to Bakersfield after he cleared waivers, So he's not with the team anymore. Ryan Murray and Brad Malone are going to be the only scratches in the game. But here are the lines that the Edmonton Oilers will be rolling out against the Wild. Leon Draisaitl will line up alongside Connor McDavid and Zach Hyman on the top line. Shocker. Matthias Janmark continues his stint in the top six with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Kyler Yamamoto. Dylan Holloway, James Hamblin, and Jesse Puljujärvi make up the third line, a third line with a lot to prove, and the fourth line of Dream Carson, Devon Shore, and Derek Ryan. The Edmonton Oilers rolling out with the same defense as they ran basically the entire season. Darnell Nurse alongside Cody Ceci, Brett Kulak with Tyson Barrie, Philip Broberg, and Evan Bouchard make up the third and final pairing, and Stuart Skinner getting another start in goal as he has made his third straight here, after the first one was that 47 save banger he had, and then it came as a little sleeper with an 18 shot against performance, 16 saves on those 18 shots, and now getting another start. A start against a team that's much better than the the Arizona Coyotes, but this is now the time for this Oilers team to see, okay, now we've seen some chemistry, we've seen some success with these lines. Let's go out there and prove that this might be the lineup to go with for the foreseeable future. Now, we will see Warren Foegele draw in, well, at least he will travel with the team to Minnesota. We aren't sure if he will line up yet, and so far, unless somebody hasn't given the Oilers a reason to take them out, well, we shall see. Let's talk about the third line, though, of Dylan Holloway, James Hamblin, and Jesse Puljujärvi. As I mentioned, that is a line that has a lot to prove, and that line, alongside the Costin Shore Ryan line, could be the difference between a win and a loss for the Edmonton Oilers. We saw how much the bottom six scored in that game. Well, mostly, honestly, that fourth line with Shore, Ryan, and Costin. Can the third line with Holloway, Hamblin, and Puljujärvi, pull their weight. Yes, they did a lot of very quiet and very small things right. Kept the energy going for the Edmonton Oilers when McDavid and Draisaitl and Nugent-Hopkins and Yamamoto's lines were out there. They kept the forecheck going. They made it hard on Arizona's defensemen, made it hard on the goaltender. I feel bad for Connor Ingram in that game, but that's what you need to see from the Edmonton Oilers once again. Now, back on the back line, Nurse CC stays together, and I'm very interested to see how they do against Minnesota. I don't know. I have a feeling that I don't even think we're going to end the month. Maybe into January we'll have those lines, but I think we might see a shift in defensive partners soon. I just think the Edmonton Oilers need to see a change coming up. Either way, the Edmonton Oilers have a big task against the Minnesota Wild as they had a comeback. Well, actually, they had a comeback loss against the Calgary Flames the last time they touched the ice. Went up to an early 2-0 lead over the Flames, but they couldn't close the game out as the Flames came back and won that one. And that's interesting for the Edmonton Oilers. The Oilers are a team that has been known recently to allow the first goal and have to come back in games. Well, in the last couple of games, the Oilers have scored first, and unfortunately, some of them haven't finished so well. But the Edmonton Oilers need to make sure that they are always hammering. Make it hard on this defense to make a play. Kirill Kaprizov is an obvious threat all the time, but you still got quiet guys like Matthew Boldy. Joel Eriksson-Ek is an Oiler killer for some reason. These are guys the Oilers need to be hard on, not only from their top lines, but their bottom six as well. So we will see how the Edmonton Oilers face off against the Minnesota Wild in the first of a home and home with the Wild. But there are 3 things the Edmonton Oilers need to do to ensure success in this home and home. And some of them the Oilers are already doing right now, at least in the last couple of games. But can they keep those things going? We will talk about that in just a second. But first, today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer and even esports. They've got it all at BetOnline. And if you love sports podcasts, which if you're listening to this podcast, you probably do, they've got those at BetOnline as well. Guys, I don't know if you caught any of the World Cup today, but that was probably the craziest day in sports I've ever seen. I mean, the odds in that one have probably gone up and down all day, and you should follow the juice. Morocco and Portugal tomorrow, are you kidding me? That's going to be fantastic. Either way, head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Alrighty, let's get into the 3 things the Edmonton Oilers need to do against the Minnesota Wild in this home and home. The first one tonight at home, obviously at Rogers Place. And then on Monday, they get the weekend off. On Monday, the Oilers are in Minnesota for a 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time puck drop, 7 o'clock Central if you are in the Central area. But let's go through the 3 things the Oilers need to do in these 2 games that to make sure the Oilers win. The first thing is, well, succeed, but the Oilers need wins either way. The first thing is score first. The Edmonton Oilers have scored first in numerous of their last couple of games. Some of them, they're actually, I should just say one of them, and that's the Capitals game. They weren't able to put that team away, and they went out to lose. However, the Edmonton Oilers play better, A, when they go out and score first, but B, they're able to get into a rhythm. And if they're able to score first, that's telling me the Oilers have found their rhythm, and it's just a matter of keeping that rhythm going. Don't get into stupid penalties. Don't start playing the game of the opposition. Play your game. play the game the Edmonton Oilers can, and you can probably go out there and win a very difficult hockey game against a very good hockey team. Yes, these are teams that the Edmonton Oilers should be beating, or at least being competitive against if they want to be a Stanley Cup not only contender, but a Stanley Cup champion. But that all starts off with scoring the first goal, proving that A, you are the better team, B, you're playing the better game, and C, a force to be reckoned with. That is big for the Edmonton Oilers. And if you are scoring first, that means you're not down first. You're not fighting back from the start. And with the Edmonton Oilers' luck and the Edmonton Oilers' mentality, sometimes the Edmonton Oilers are fighting from behind. Like Leon Draisaitl has said, it's sometimes very draining to have to come back every single game. So the first thing the Edmonton Oilers need to do, especially in the game on Friday, but also away from home in Minnesota, is get that first goal. Make it difficult on the other team. The second thing for the Edmonton Oilers to do to have some sort of success in this home and home is keep the pedal to the metal. We saw it against Arizona, so the Edmonton Oilers have proven that they can dominate a game. Yes, I see your comments going, it's only Arizona. Let's not pretend they beat Colorado. Yes, I see that, Ganja Boss. But you have to realize that this is an 82-step process. And if you are, like I said in the last episode, what if the Edmonton Oilers go out there, score the first goal, score the second goal, and they're up 2-0 in that second period? Hell, let's just say they go up 3-1 in that game. And then they end up losing to Arizona. Well, then we would be having a totally different song in a totally different tune, wouldn't it? We would be going, oh, why aren't they able to put games away? Why can't they do it? Well, we aren't having that discourse because the Edmonton Oilers went out there and scored the first goal, scored the second goal, scored the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh goal, scored their eighth goal. The Edmonton Oilers were able to keep that pedal to the metal and win a hockey game by 6, which at times during the season seemed impossible even against an Arizona Coyotes. So the Edmonton Oilers, if the Oilers do get the first goal, they need to keep the pedal to the metal. Score the second goal. Score the third goal. And not even, hey, if you score the first goal and then score the second goal, then that gives you a little bit of room that if you do allow the third goal, then you just go out there and make sure you get the next goal. Just make sure that you are always up as often as you can. Do not let this very good Minnesota Wild team back into the game, or they're going to take advantage of it. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure the Oilers scored the first goal of the game that they played against Minnesota last time. So I'm just saying, you need to keep the pedal to the metal against the Minnesota Wild. And the third and final thing for the Edmonton Oilers to have any sort of success in this home and home against the Minnesota Wild is getting 2 goals in each game from anybody not named Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl. The last, 15 games that the Edmonton Oilers have played in, of the 10 of those that the Oilers have won, whatever that number may have been, in each and every one of those wins, the Edmonton Oilers have gotten at least 2 goals from players not named Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl. And that includes goals from Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Zach Hyman, Tyson Barrie. It doesn't have to be a Dylan Holloway, a James Hamblin, a Jesse Puljujarvi, which seems impossible. It can be the Nugent-Hopkins. Hell, maybe Kyler Yamamoto gets his first goal of the season. Either way, as long as it's not coming from Leon Draisaitl or Connor McDavid, and the Oilers can score 2 of those, the Edmonton Oilers will win a game. I would say secondary scoring, but I say that includes Hyman and Nugent-Hopkins, because those guys are having great seasons and are primary scorers on the Edmonton Oilers. However, just Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, if we can get any goals, not from those two players, the Edmonton Oilers might be okay. So the three things in this home and home against the Minnesota Wild and the Edmonton Oilers. First thing is score first, for the love of God. Please don't go down early. The second thing is keep the pedal to the metal. Once you score that first goal, keep pushing. Do not give the Wild a moment to breathe or they will make you pay. And the third and final thing is get 2 goals, not 1, 2 goals in each of those games from anybody not named Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl. Let's move into our dog of the week. Our dog of the week for this one. As mentioned, we haven't done this in a long time, but this guy has shown exemplary forms of what it takes to be an Edmonton Oiler, and I can't wait to see what he has next for the Edmonton Oilers fans, as he has just been a fan favorite, especially over the last week, and we've talked a lot about him ever since then. We will talk about him in just a second, but first, thank you so much for making Locked On Oilers your first listen today. Now for your second listen, make sure you check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports. Go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you find your podcasts. Alrighty, let's wrap up today's episode with one of my favorite players right now for the Edmonton Oilers. As mentioned, I've loved this guy since juniors, and now he is finally figuring it out in the NHL, so far right now with the Edmonton Oilers. And this is our dog of the week, just absolute. Again, a guy who goes out there and shows what it takes to be an Edmonton Oiler or just really go out there and is really noticeable. This is the dog of the week. If you have any suggestions, by the way, of the name, I know DAWG, DAWG, doesn't really have much of a correlation between the Oilers and anything, but if you have any suggestions, let me know. I'm open to suggestions to change the name of this, but for right now, the dog of the week goes to who else? Dream Carson is this week, a goal and an assist, 2 points, getting the Edmonton Oilers' first Gordie Howe hat trick since Zach Kassian did it for the Edmonton Oilers against Matt Martin of the New York Islanders. If I'm not mistaken, that was back in 2017. So the Edmonton Oilers haven't had a Gordie Howe hat trick in almost 5 years. That's insane. Dream Carson now the player to do it. And in fact, he did it against the last Edmonton Oiler to do it in Zach Kassian. Somebody mentioned it was funny that Zach Kassian fought the only player basically that he didn't play with on the Edmonton Oilers in Dream Carson. I thought that was pretty funny as well. But Dream Carson as well is just, here's the thing about Dream Carson. Yes, we talk about his goal, his assist, his Gordie Howe hat trick. We talk about his fight. But the thing that Dream Carson has really done is A, solidified the Edmonton Oilers' bottom 6. B, made a really nice trio with Devon Shore and Derek Ryan, and C, has added the toughness that the Edmonton Oilers have been lacking for a while. He's a great skater. He can read the game really well, and he can play well in his own end, and all of those factors have gone into a really good start as an Edmonton Oiler for Dream Carson. Plus, I mean, heck, he might even get a top 6 look soon, because he again, as mentioned, he can skate, he has raw talent, he goes forward. I would be interested to see how he would catch up with a Leon and Connor. Maybe not Leon and Connor right away, but I wonder if, Janmark is currently on the second line. Why not at some point switch out Janmark with Costin and have Costin, Nugent-Hopkins, and Yamamoto? 3 very hard-working players who do little and simple things right. I think you could get something very interesting out of that lineup. And plus, I mean, this kid is just so lovable. Hi, my name is Clem and I am hungry. Just hearing some of his sound bites with the media, even he goes, I love the media, I love the team, I even love you guys, the media, blah, blah, blah. He is so fun to have and a breath of fresh air to have in this locker room. A smiling face, a friendly face, and somebody who is genuinely happy to come to the rink and play for the Edmonton Oilers. Now, the interesting thing in the word that's being tossed around for Dream Carson is that he's a rink rat. Well, we talked about it at length before the draft. That's the type of player that the Edmonton Oilers like, is a rink rat. That's what they call Xavier Bourgault. That's what they say about a lot of the Edmonton Oilers draft picks, is that they're the guys that they intentionally bring into the organization, or they are rink rats. They are people who are always at the rink, who love playing the game of hockey and want to better themselves in the game. And that is exactly what Dream Carson is doing with this opportunity in Edmonton so far with the Oilers. So our dog of the week goes to Dream Carson, and I couldn't be any happier because that man has brought, as mentioned, a breath of fresh air to the Oilers and something that the Oilers genuinely haven't had in a while. Either way, the Edmonton Oilers and the Minnesota Wild get, well, wild in Edmonton on Friday. As mentioned, puck drop is right away here, so there was a little bit of a pregame, but there's still more to this going on against the Minnesota Wild. We got this one on Friday, and then the back half of the home and home on Monday in Minnesota. 6 o'clock puck drop. 6 o'clock puck drop. There we go. It's the end of the week in Minnesota on Monday. We shall see you then. Until then, stay safe, and hopefully throughout the weekend we can play La Bamba, baby.